And we're back with more from our politics panel, including the Atlantic's Molly Ball, the National Review's Ramesh Ponnuru, Slate Magazine's Jamelle Bouie, Time Magazine's Michael Duffy, and the Washington Post's Ed O'Keefe. We want to start this segment with a clip here. This is somebody talking to David Duke, the former KKK Grand Wizard, yesterday.
What does today represent to you? How you doing?
This represents a turning point for the people of this country. We are determined to take our country back. We're going to fulfill the promises of Donald Trump. That's what we believed in. That's why we voted for Donald Trump, because he said he's going to take our country back, and that's what we got to do.
Ed, this is the challenge for the president, is people can, I mean, he's saying the president's name there in that clip.
Yeah. Look, every Republican leader since at least George H.W. Bush of any significance has denounced David Duke and what he stands for and what he used to do as a KKK leader. The president struggled to do this over the course of a few days during his campaign. He yet again has not done it. This is what infuriates and scares so many people in this country, that he's behaving not as the president of the United States, but the president of 36%, the people who support him. Look at what he did this past week. Denounces Mitch McConnell, a Washington insider. Stirs trouble with two strong men around the world, Kim Jong-un and Nicolas Maduro. Refuses, however, to denounce what Vladimir Putin did in Russia. And then said what he said yesterday and tries to equate those that were trying to denounce David Duke and his friends with what they were doing. That is what is so troubling, and that is what, again, I sit here thinking, what more will it take for his party to really try to put more distance or compel him, if not tomorrow, at some point soon, to come out and through his words and actions denounce this?
I think you can include North Korea in this. If there's a universal field theory to this week, it's that the president is quite concerned about his base.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we saw him hold his approval rating at about 40% for 6 weeks this summer, from about June 16th to about August 1st. That great 72 hours when we had the transgendered tweet and the Scaramucci blow up and the Boy Scout speech. And then you saw his disapproval drop to about 35, 36, 37, about 7 to 10%. And that's when he realized that his base was beginning to erode, and he needs to maintain that base at all costs. So I think that partly explains the McConnell tweet, the attacks on the foreign leaders, the North Korean bravado and belligerence, because he knows it plays well. And even yesterday he said, "My people love this," or, you know, these are very popular things I'm saying. So I think he's very aware of what he's doing.
But it is an insult to the 35 to 40% of people who still support this president to equate them with David Duke. The president is implying that this is something that you know, aligning himself with the kinds of people who did this rally is somehow going to play well. I mean, David Duke ran for office in Louisiana last year, came in near dead last. This is not, these ideas are repugnant to the vast majority of Americans, including the vast majority of Republicans, including the vast majority of people who support Donald Trump. I mean, I was just in Alabama this week, and, you know, the president is very popular there, but the people there are not supporting the president because they believe in the ideas of David Duke and the white nationalists.
I'm not sure it's that much of a binary, though, because white supremacist ideas exist on a continuum. So you have David Duke, right? But you also have, you know, we have to remove all these dangerous Hispanic immigrants, which is an idea that can be cloaked in sort of non-racial content, but it has racial content at its core. So I'm not sure that the president is necessarily wrong in sort of this instinctive analysis, right? That not coming down with a hammer on white supremacists, not coming down on the most activist part of this group of people. The president senses that not doing that helps him with people who may have softer views or somewhat more attenuated views, but still exist on that same continuum of white reaction and white resentment.
And also, I think, Ramesh, there are those who are conservatives who say, why do I have to answer for this? They find neo-Nazis just as repugnant as anybody else, as a matter of just pure American citizenship. So why are they on the hook for having to answer for this?
It's funny because you get the same basic dynamic when people, a lot of them conservatives, say, why aren't moderate Muslims denouncing jihadists? And peaceful Muslims feel like, these aren't my people. Why do I have this obligation to act as though they are? And I do think that there is something of that same psychological impulse at work among people who don't want to who feel like they don't have to denounce these white supremacists. We don't know exactly why President Trump is doing what he's doing and saying what he's saying. It could be a political calculation, but I do suspect that part of it is also my enemies want to link me to these people. They want to force me to do, they're telling me I have to apologize, denounce. I'm not going to give in. I'm not going to be weak. I do think that we know that President Trump is obsessed with the idea of projecting strength and avoiding the impression of weakness. And I do think that's probably part of what's going on.
And that's part of what's so confusing and frustrating about this, is that he says these things and he's so vague that it allows for interpretation, forces this conversation, and then has 3 different administration officials out this morning saying different things and clarifying and explaining what he said differently.
A man who built his career on not being vague,
exactly,
being quite specific. Jamelle,
I think it's worth saying just about the president's statement, though. Towards the end, he says we have to cherish our history. In the context of an event that was held to defend Confederate statues in Charlottesville, Virginia, to say we need to cherish our history, to me, sounds like a dog whistle to the Unite the Right demonstrators. So that would be my piece of evidence for this isn't just like an impulse. Right, exactly.
Because they argued that keeping the General Lee statue in the park is a part of cherishing history.
Right.
Michael Duffy, you wrote about the new chief of staff this week. Is this something a chief of staff can take a handle of? What is the chief of staff to do in this?
He's a Marine. He's not a miracle worker. Let's but being too loud and too strident and too belligerent on North Korea in the same time frame that you're being too silent on Charlottesville suggests that they have a long way to go to get the president, to manage his messaging certainly, and obviously to talk to him about a way. I was really struck, and just to go back, why I think North Korea is tied into this general kind of, you call it a dog whistle, but broadcasting to his base. As Pompeo said to you just 20 minutes ago, this is not an imminent risk today. And that you would never know from reading the president's tweets about, or his statements, excuse me, about North Korea this week. So he's turning up this volume himself. Right. You know, there were sanctions this week by the UN. Those were put in place. They did. We learned. Those of us, learned that they could miniaturize a nuclear weapon, but I presume the government had known for some time. We were not the first to hear about this. So even on important geopolitical matters, he is using his mouthpiece in a way that I think is really aimed at some part of his core supporters at a moment when he's feeling under pressure.
Molly, the president also criticized Mitch McConnell. Doesn't he need Mitch McConnell as the Senate leader?
Well, and from what I understand, McConnell is not exactly taking this personally, but there's a clear attempt to deflect blame, and this is another of Donald Trump's signature personality characteristics that we've seen over and over again. His agenda is flailing. Washington isn't getting anything done, and so his impulse, rather than trying to exert some kind of leadership or be more involved in the process, is to separate himself from the mess and point the finger at his own party. This is somewhat distressing to the members of his party who are going to be on the ballot a lot sooner than he is, but we do increasingly see him turning on Republicans in Congress, turning on McConnell and saying, it's your fault, you couldn't get this done for me. And my experience talking to Trump supporters in West Virginia and Alabama the last couple of weeks, they're hearing that message. They're not blaming Trump for this.
Look, McConnell started this particular round of things by criticizing Trump over the healthcare debacle in a way that didn't actually make any sense. And the fact of the matter is this was a cause that Republicans took up long before Trump. It was congressional Republicans who didn't have a plan going. It was McConnell who was more involved in it than Trump was. And of course, everything we know about Trump is if you come out and criticize him, he's going to attack you back. So yes, this doesn't make a lot of strategic sense for President Trump, but what McConnell did started this entire fight in a way that makes no sense for him.
All right, I'm afraid, Ed, we're going to have to end it there. That's it for us for the moment. We'll be right back. Stay with us.